It's not even Wednesday, and I'm exhausted. Hey BookTube, it's Kim at Middle of the Book March, and today's video is going to be about my favorite audiobooks. Now, fun fact, before BookTube, I did not listen to audiobooks ever. They just weren't on my radar, and I didn't even consider them as an option. And it wasn't until I started watching BookTube that I realized how many people out there really did listen to and enjoy audiobooks. So I started to try a few, and I tried fiction at first because that's my first love, and they just did not work for me. I typically don't listen to fiction on audio because I need to get deeper into it, and I get distracted very easily. So the books that work best for me are nonfiction. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's because it's a different part of my brain. Maybe it's a left brain, right brain kind of a thing. I don't know. But nonfiction works really well for me. But today I wanted to talk about 10 of my favorite audiobooks, and I think there's one there's a few that are fiction, but I have exceptions, and I'll tell you those when I get to them. So let me tell you about my 10 favorite audiobooks. One of them, now I have a couple that are going to be at the top of the list, but for the most part, they're not really in any particular order. The first one I'm going to talk about is Big Girl, Small Town by Michelle Gallen. This is narrated by Nicola Coughlan, and if you watch Dairy Girls on Netflix, you will know Nicola Coughlan, and she is also in Bridgerton. And for the life of me, I can't remember her characters' names, but she narrates Big Girl, Small Town. Her accent is perfection, and this book is hilarious. It is heartwarming, it is heartbreaking, and it's a nail biter at times, but her narration is fantastic. And I think one of the best things about listening to audiobooks that are narrated by actors is they put the drama in, and they're used to memorizing lines, so for the most part you don't feel like somebody is reading to you from a text. She acts it out. And it is so good listening to her. I love her voice. It was awesome. The next one is Angela's Ashes, very, another Irish book, Irish-themed book. Angela's Ashes is a memoir by Frank McCourt, who also narrates the memoir. Now, Angela's Ashes is one of my favorite nonfiction books of all time. I've read it a few times. I read it several years ago for the first time. One of the only nonfiction books that made me sob. And if you've read it, you know, but it is his memoir of his early childhood and teenage years in Ireland in abject poverty with an alcoholic father. It is, I say this again, and it sounds funny, but it's freaking hilarious. But there are also some times when it's very difficult to listen to. It's difficult to know that this man went through these things in his childhood. It's very hard. He and his family lived such a bleak, dark life. But he also has 2 follow-up memoirs that really catch you up to how his life turned out. But him narrating his own memoir was just brilliant, and I absolutely loved it. The next one, let's see. Next one is another fiction book. This is Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, narrated by Ruby Dee. I had already read Their Eyes Were Watching God in print, and I have to admit that it could be difficult because of the dialect. But listening to, listening to Ruby Dee, my cold is still there. I'm not even going to edit that out. So listening to Ruby Dee narrate Their Eyes Were Watching God is perfection. Just her voice, the inflection, her pronunciation of the dialect, it was beautiful. And it helped open up for me the actual themes of the story, the gist of it, the events, the personalities, the tone of the story. And Ruby Dee's voice is just artistic. It's wonderful. The next one is The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin, and this is narrated by Jesse L. Martin. The Fire Next Time, James Baldwin grew up in a fundamentalist Christian home, I believe with a pastor father, and he was at one point a preacher. And this book is talking about how God will destroy the earth through fire next time. It is a profound book. It is beautifully written. James Baldwin and Jesse L. Martin does an incredible job at narrating this book. The things that make audiobooks favorites for me are the voices. And if I feel, as the listener, if I feel like they've put artistic effort into the narration, that will be almost a 5-star audiobook for me. Even if the content, it may not be my favorite, or I may have some small quibbles with some of the content, if the narrator is on their game, then I will love the audiobook. There are some audiobooks with the content that I'm not that interested in, but if they have a fantastic narrator, it's a game changer for me. The next one, this is a novel, These Silent Woods by Kimmy Cunningham Grant, narrated by Bronson Pinchot. And I read this book at the very beginning of last year. It was my first 5-star book of the year. Bronson Pinchot was incredible in this audiobook. This is a mystery, and it's the mystery of a father with his young daughter who he basically takes and ends up in a very remote part of a forest living off of the grid. And we know that he's hiding from someone or something. But what we don't know is why. And we don't know why he's taken his toddler daughter and what are the events that precipitated that. Pinchot narrating this book, I was able to listen to it and pay attention because of his voice, because of the way he was reading, because of the events in the story. And I didn't lose focus once. I was mesmerized by this audiobook. I highly recommend the book. But if you have the chance to listen to it on audio, I don't think you'll be disappointed. Let's see. This one is a novel, but it's a classic. And here's one of my exceptions. I can listen to classics if I've already read them in print and if the audiobook is terrific. The audiobook narrator is terrific. This is one of my favorite audiobooks, and it's a classic. It's Pride and Prejudice, narrated by Emilia Fox. Emilia Fox is an actor, and she was the character of Georgiana Darcy in the miniseries of Pride and Prejudice. And she is a voice actor and an actor, and she ended up narrating this version of Pride and Prejudice. And she's got the perfect voice for it. I listened to this in the car, and I laughed my butt off listening to Mrs. Bennet and Mr. Bennet and the Bennet sisters, and just some of the characters. Gosh, I couldn't get over how funny it was listening to it on audio. Mr. Collins, it was so funny, and the book is beautiful, but listening to her narrate it was just wonderful. I'm gonna run out of adjectives. I do highly recommend her narration. Emilia Fox is her name if you're not familiar. All right, now what's next? I'm trying to figure out which are my top 3. Okay, the next one is Not My Father's Son by Alan Cummings. Yeah, Alan Cummings. And this is his memoir. It is his memoir about his childhood with an abusive alcoholic father in the Scottish countryside. I think it's the countryside. Maybe not. In Scotland. He grew up, he's Scottish. And his voice, just his voice. He's an actor that I've always loved in whatever he's been in. I first came upon him in Circle of Friends with Minnie Driver many, many, many years ago. But he's got the perfect voice and inflection to narrate his own memoir. And the material, the content is is bleak and scary. As it gets towards the end of the book, he starts to analyze how his background, how his past has affected his future as an actor and a performer and a husband. He has a husband, and how did that affect their relationship? It was magnificent, and you can hear the emotion in his voice as he's telling his own story. Highly recommend it. If you really like celebrity memoirs, this is one of those celebrity memoirs that is much more personal than it is about the business and about the industry. I loved it. All right, now for my top 3 audiobooks. Coming in at number 3 is Taste by Stanley Tucci. I love Stanley Tucci. Just anything he's been in. I loved him in The Devil Wears Prada. I loved him in any other movie he's ever been in. I love watching him on talk shows. I love watching him on TV. I love listening to him. Taste is his book, his memoir about food. And it's about his life and his family and his marriage and his health. But the food, he grew up in Italian, and his mother learned how to cook Italian food and then passed on her techniques and her recipes to him. And he is an Italian chef. And listening to him talk about the food that he cooks, the recipes, my mouth was watering the whole time. And, a swear word is coming up. There was a recipe of some sort of pasta dish, I believe. And one of the ingredients was a fuck ton of butter. And I just started cracking up laughing. I wanted to rewind and listen to it all over again because he has a very dry tone and so witty and just effusive in his praise of his mother's cooking and this Italian food and the family. You have to go and listen to this book, Taste by Stanley Tucci. The only reason I would buy it in print was to get the recipes because he does include some recipes in the book, and I would love it. Love it. Now, these top 2 audiobooks, these are tough because I love them for such different reasons. And it might sound funny, but number 2 is going to be Middlemarch, narrated by George Eliot, narrated by Juliet Stevenson. If you've watched my channel for any length of time, you will know that I have a massive lady crush on Juliet Stevenson. As an actor, as an audiobook narrator, she narrates so many audiobooks, and I continue to wonder if that's now what she does full time. She has narrated so many classics: Middlemarch, Mill on the Floss, Daniel Deronda. I think maybe she's narrated most, if not all, of George Eliot's novels. She's narrated Jane Austen's novels. She has narrated Virginia Woolf's novels. She narrates contemporary novels. I listened to The Mermaid and Mrs. Hancock by Imogen Gower on audio, narrated by Juliet Stevenson. If you type in Juliet Stevenson audiobooks in Google, it is an endless list of books narrated by her. But Middlemarch and Daniel Deronda, narrated by Juliet Stevenson, just absolute perfection. She does every voice uniquely, every single voice. She has the perfect British accent for George Eliot's works. She does the tone, the volume, the dialect, everything. And it is sublime to listen to her narrate Middlemarch. I reread Middlemarch last year, and I did a combination of print and audiobook. And just beautiful, just beautiful. And every time I watch a movie with her in it, it's like, oh, there's Juliet Stevenson. Oh, I just watched Mona Lisa Smile with Julia Roberts several weeks ago, and she's in that movie, and I didn't remember that. She was the school nurse at Wellesley. I was like, oh, that's Juliet Stevenson. She was in the miniseries of Pride and Prejudice. And Pride and Prejudice? No. Which one? Which one was she in? Emma. She was in the miniseries of Emma. And she probably was in several other Jane Austen movies. I don't remember. But her narrating Middlemarch is just lovely. Lovely to listen to. My favorite audiobook, even though I put Middlemarch at number 2, even though Middlemarch is one of probably my all-time favorite book. Channel name. My favorite audiobook was, without a doubt, Finding Me by Viola Davis, who also narrates her book. This is her memoir. And I do believe she won an Oscar for this narration. I will double check that. But this is her story. Viola Davis is an incredible actor. And this is her memoir, and she talks about how she was born, how she grew up, the level of poverty. Her family was from Rhode Island. The level of poverty they lived with for decades, and the conflict within the family dynamics, everything. She is so incredibly transparent about her life and her background. And it is a celebrity memoir. However, this is about her. This is about her personal life. As she gets older, we hear about how she gets into acting, her career. But even as an adult, and even as she's landing these movie roles, one after another, and the TV roles, one after another, she's still narrating the story of her family and what she had to overcome and the things that she had to endure. I could listen to her voice endlessly. I just love her as an actor. I love her as a narrator. Listening to her story, I felt honored to listen to it, that she would put it out there, that she would let us all into her life that way. It was just an incredible audiobook, and please listen to it if you have the chance. Those are my top 10 favorite audiobooks. I've listened to many more, but that group has to be my favorites. Those have to be my favorites. I can speak. So if any of those sound good to you, I would recommend you rush out and pick one and listen to any of them. Listen to the whole list. They are definitely worth it. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite audiobooks are. Let me know if you've listened to any of these and if you feel the same way or differently than me. That's okay too. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.